On the deck of a luxurious ship, while the guests are dancing to a beautiful song, a serious accident occurs. After a mysterious man pulls the lever, a steel rope comes loose and crosses the hull, breaking all the passengers in half. As she is the only young woman on the ship, Katie manages to escape unscathed as she is still very short and sees all the other crew members being eliminated right in front of her in a frightening way. 40 years later, during a rescue mission of a sunken ship, Epps realizes that the vessel is sinking again, so she decides to go there to close the hole through which the seawater is entering. With the help of Munder and Dodge, the woman manages to complete her objective and, when she reaches the coast, her team goes out to celebrate yet another successful mission. While Captain Murphy and his team are gathered around a bar table, Jack Ferriman appears and tells them that he is part of the Mackenzie Bay Weather Patrol. Last month, while flying over the ocean, the man found an abandoned ship in the Bering Strait and says he will charge 20% of the reward the team will receive when they bring the ship back to shore. Knowing that a ship like that is worth millions of dollars, Captain Murphy and his group don't think twice before accepting the mission, and Jack says he will accompany them to make sure they find the exact coordinates where the ship is abandoned. While piloting the boat, Santos checks the radar and finds some floating object 16 kilometers away. At that moment, he calls the captain to inform him that the ship they are looking for is nearby, and Murphy tells the rest of the crew that there is a ship to the north of there. Without knowing exactly where the ship is, Santos slows the boat down and continues sailing until suddenly, thanks to the bow lights, the pilot realizes that the ship is right in front of him and has to brake abruptly. As he is outside the ship at the moment, Dodge ends up being thrown into the sea, but manages to hold onto a rope and climbs back onto the deck just before he is eliminated. After the collision, the captain tries to contact any possible survivors of the Antonia Graza, but gets no response. Apparently, there is no one on board, and Murphy claims to recognize the ship, which was reported missing on May 21, 1962. The curious thing is that there was no call for help. Antonia Graza simply disappeared and was never seen again. As the ship has been sought after for more than 40 years, the team knows that they will make a great fortune from the rescue, so they begin to mobilize to bring it back to shore. To do this, they need to investigate every corner of the ship, and Murphy urges everyone to be careful, as 40 years of rust could have turned the deck floor into quicksand. During the investigation, the team realizes that not only have all the lifeboats disappeared, but the emergency lockers are also empty. While walking through the main hall, Murphy notices that something is wrong, and, as Munder approaches a wall clock, it starts beeping. After the scare, the group continues their expedition and doesn't even notice when the dice on the table move by themselves to form a welcome message. Murphy says that there were more than 600 passengers on that ship, all of them from European high society. On reaching the second floor of the ship, Munder takes the lead in the investigation and ends up having an accident as the floor collapses beneath his feet. When he sees the man about to suffer a terrible fall, his friends get together to try and pull him back up, and Epps spots the ghost of a girl looking down at her. After Munder is rescued, Epps looks down again and sees that the girl has disappeared, so she continues her mission as if nothing had happened, but Murphy realizes that there is something wrong with her. Worried about the woman, the captain decides to stay by her side and asks for her help in finding the logbook. During the search, Dodge finds a digital watch and realizes that his team is not the first to enter that abandoned ship, as there were no digital watches in 1962. As it's already dark and they can't see properly, Murphy advises his crew to get some sleep, as they'll need to prepare to tow the ship the next morning. When the group returns to their ship, Jack asks the captain how that European ship ended up in the Bering Strait. At this point, Murphy tells the legend of a ship called the Marie Celeste that sailed from Charleston during the Civil War. The ship was on its way to London with a huge cargo of cotton and, 2 months after setting sail, was spotted by fishermen near Tripoli, the capital of Libya. On boarding, the fishermen found no passengers, no crew, and not even the ship's captain. According to Murphy, 59 days after the last entry in the logbook, the ship had traveled 8,000 kilometers across the ocean, crossed the Rock of Gibraltar, and entered the Mediterranean Sea at full steam, even without anyone at the helm. The only explanation for this phenomenon is that the Marie Celeste was a ghost ship, and the captain believes that they may be dealing with something similar, even though she has decided not to tell anyone about the ghost girl he saw on the ship. Epps can't stop thinking about it, and Jack realizes that the woman has been very distressed since she arrived. When questioned, Epps decides to tell him about the girl she saw on the deck, but in an instant she has disappeared. In an attempt to comfort the woman, Jack tells her that when he's been driving for a long time, he often has these visions too, and she thanks him for his support. In the morning, Epps, Munder, and Dodge dive to check the ship for structural damage and find a large hole in the hull. Everything indicates that the ship was hit recently, and, if nothing is done to repair the damage, it will soon sink. So, before towing them away, the crew will have to plug that hole, and they only have 3 days to do it before the Antonia Graza is carried away by the current and ends up crashing into an archipelago full of rocks. While Munder goes to the engine room, Epps arrives in the bathroom and finds numerous cartridges thrown into an empty swimming pool, as if they had been fired there. At that moment, she climbs the pool stairs to get the radio and inform the rest of the team about her discovery, but at that moment the woman comes across Katie's ghost and ends up having an accident due to the fright. While walking through the captain's office, Murphy finds a bloody razor in the bathroom sink and comes to the conclusion that the blade was used to hurt someone. During the investigation in the captain's office, he comes across an apparently clean glass of drink and decides to drink it. However, when he goes to take his first sip, Murphy looks at his reflection in the mirror and sees the image of the former captain, so he gets scared and decides to leave. When she wakes up from the brief faint caused by the fall, Epps runs into Jack, who helps her out of the pool, and neither of them notice that blood is leaking from the wall where the bullet holes were made. Suddenly, the entire pool begins to fill with a red liquid, where the bodies of the people shot are floating. Epps and Jack then walk to the laundry room, which is completely flooded. The pair's goal is to reach the forward hold of the ship, but when they open the hatch that leads there, they are surprised by a large amount of water in which numerous bodies have been hidden for less than a month. At that moment, the door through which the crew entered closes by itself and they can't get out, so they decide to enter the hold. In the main hall, Greer finds a recently used ashtray. Seeing the lipstick mark, he begins to think it belongs to Epps and leaves without noticing Francesca looking at him. While trying to find a way out of the front cellar, Jack comes across a beautiful Jaguar and is enchanted by the vehicle, as when he was a child he dreamed of owning one. Suddenly, Epps sees something moving inside a box and, upon opening it, the woman is faced with an infestation of rats along with a large quantity of gold bars. Determined to get out of that place and find their friends as soon as possible, the couple abandons all that gold and continues their search. Just then, Epps hears her friends' voices calling for help on the radio and walks into the kitchen. When she gets there, she enters the fridge and is startled when Munder and Dodge, who were hiding between the sheets, turn on their flashlights and start screaming. When she discovers that her friends have thought up a trap to scare her, Epps is furious and tells them that she found bodies floating in the laundry room. After gathering her entire team, the woman returns to the cargo compartment to collect the bars, and the group finds numerous boxes full of gold. Knowing that all that treasure is worth millions of dollars, the team members celebrate the fact that they are rich before they even receive the reward for the ship. Unlike his friends, Greer automatically begins to suspect that something is wrong, as it is unusual for such a large amount of gold to be transported by a tourist ship. When he discovers that the marks on all the bars have been removed, Greer says that the gold must be stolen and claims that the ship is cursed. According to the man, while searching the main hall, he heard a woman's voice singing, but the place was empty. When they hears this, the crew begin to mock him, and the captain says that the team is doing nothing wrong, because according to maritime law, anything found in international waters belongs to whoever found it. So Greer convinces his friends to take that gold, get back on the boat and get the hell out of there. While Santos makes some repairs to the boat, Greer starts the engines and Murphy transports the gold bars on a trolley with the help of Epps. Just then, Katie appears and starts shouting for the team to stop, because they'll be eliminated if they start the boat. After saying these words, the girl falls into the ocean before she can alert Greer. Unaware of what is about to happen, the man presses the button and ends up causing a huge explosion, which also hits Santos and Munder. Seeing his friends in danger, Epps jumps into the water to try to help them and manages to help Munder and Greer, but Santos ends up losing his life. Furious at the loss of his friend, Dodge attacks Jack, holding him responsible for sending his team to that end of the world. Now, the only way to escape alive is to fix Antonia Graza, but Greer disagrees with this idea and suggests that the team build a raft to get off that ship as soon as possible. However, everyone disagrees with this plan and Munder says he will support Epps. While arguing with him, Greer loses control and punches his friend in the nose. While his crew argue, Murphy martyrs himself and isolates himself, feeling guilty for the loss of Santos, since he was the one who ordered Greer to start the ship's engines. As they are stuck without food on that ghost ship, Dodge and Munder decide to take a chance and, as they are starving, they decide to try canned food. When he tries the beans, Munder says that the food is delicious and Dodge accompanies him on the feast. However, after taking several spoonfuls from the pot, the pair notice that the taste is changing and, when they look back at the beans, they realize that they are full of insects. At this point, Greer is sipping a bottle of booze while lamenting the fact that he didn't call the Coast Guard to rescue them when he had the chance. Looking at the photo of his fiancée, The man says he will get back to her in time for the wedding, and Epps walks down the corridor to the bedrooms looking for Katie. Suddenly, the woman sees the doors closing by themselves and is terrified, but is distracted by hearing the girl humming in her room. When she enters the young woman's room, Epps finds her drawings stuck to the closet door, and, when she opens it, the woman finds Katie's skeleton. After recovering from her shock, she picks up the necklace that was hanging around the girl's neck and finds a picture of her parents inside the pendant. Suddenly, the young woman's ghost appears and Katie informs her that she was going to meet her parents in New York. Frightened, Epps tries to return the necklace, but the object passes through her hands and she realizes that she really is talking to a ghost. According to Katie, after losing their lives, most spirits are free to join their families, but the people who lost their lives on that ship are trapped there. The young woman says that once Antonia Graza is full of souls and has reached its quota, everyone will be taken to hell. At that moment, the room begins to shake and the walls are stained with blood, so Katie advises Epps to get off that ship while she still can and then disappears. After drinking a bottle of booze alone, Greer begins to hallucinate and sees the saloon of the abandoned ship taking shape. Gradually, the place returns to the way it was when the crew were still alive, and he comes across Francesca, who approaches him to kiss him on the cheek. Then the woman asks him to dance and Greer decides to kiss her. Since he knows Francesca isn't alive and it's just a hallucination, he feels he's not cheating on his fiancée. So when Francesca tries to lure him in, Greer doesn't think twice before going after her, and, in trying to touch her, he ends up suffering a fatal fall. While taking a nap in the captain's room, Murphy hears the bottle of booze move and wakes up. When he looks in front of him, he sees the former captain of the Antonia. The man then hands him the ship's log and tells him that the boxes of gold found in the cargo hold were retrieved from a ship called the Lorelei 2 days before the Antonia Graza disappeared. The ship Lorelei was adrift in the ocean with no survivors on board. After stealing all that gold, the captain and his crew suffered the same fate. Frightened, Murphy goes to tell his friends the news and encounters the ghost of Santos, who begins to torment him. The man claims that, because of his captain's useless plan, his soul is now trapped on that ship. Frightened, Murphy tries to escape and runs into Epps. However, on seeing her, the man is deceived and begins to see the image of Santos right in front of him. The hallucination makes him believe that his life is in danger, so Murphy attacks his friend and tries to eliminate her, but Epps manages to free herself by hitting him over the head with a metal object. Furious, Murphy gets up and grabs a gun to hit the woman. Just as he was about to hit her, Jack appears and knocks the captain out. After hearing that Murphy tried to eliminate Epps, Munder and Dodge decide to arrest him to make sure he won't pose any danger to the team. At dawn, the group walks around the ship looking for Greer, but no one can find him. They believe that the man is still angry and wants to be left alone, so they decide to start repairing the ship without him. At the end of the day, the team manages to do an excellent job and gets rid of most of the water that has invaded the ship. It's getting dark again when Epps decides to look for Greer again, because she's starting to worry about him. During the search, she comes across Katie, who shows up to show the woman where Greer's body is. At that moment, the young woman touches Epps' shoulder and shows her what happened on the night the ship's crew were eliminated. The truth was that there was a big plot going on and the cooks had put rat poison in the soup to serve to the guests. A steel rope was then used to break people's bodies in half in the saloon, but Katie managed to get out unharmed and tried to escape, then ended up being captured and saw all the other crew members being eliminated by a group of criminals. After eliminating hundreds of people to steal the gold bars, one of the gang members turned against his allies and eliminated all of them in order to escape with Francesca, but in the end he was also betrayed and lost his life to a gunshot. Then the singer's lover arrived and, after kissing her, made her fall into a frightening trap. After she lost her life, the man marked her and, when she saw his face, Epps discovered that Jack was responsible for setting up that plot that happened 40 years ago. After discovering the truth, she rushes to meet Murphy and discovers that he has been eliminated because Jack opened the water valve to drown the captain. Desperate, the woman tries to break the glass, but it's too late, because Murphy lost his life a few minutes ago and now there's nothing that can be done to bring him back. After crying for a few minutes, Epps manages to pull herself together and runs to break the news to her only 2 friends still alive. The woman asks where Munder is and says that they need to get out of there as soon as possible, as they have been taken there to repair the ship. Just then, Jack appears and says he saw Murphy lifeless, so he asks what happened. Frightened, Epps says she doesn't know how the accident happened and asks Dodge to stay in the cabin while she goes after Munder. After handing her friend a gun, Epps goes to meet Munder, who is diving to see if there are any more openings in the ship's hull. During the dive, Munder is swept away by the current and his body ends up being hit by the gears of the engine room. When she arrives at the site to look for her friend, Epps realizes that the water is stained with blood and finds Munder's parts stuck to the bottom. At that moment, Jack decides to go and meet Epps, but Dodge orders him to wait until the woman returns. However, the man continues to insist on leaving and claims that Dodge is like a little dog who does everything Epps tells him to. After saying these words, Jack tries to attack him, so Dodge takes the gun and shoots his enemy in the chest. Believing that he has just committed a crime, he goes away scared, but soon afterwards Jack opens his eyes and goes after him. When he meets Epps, Dodge realizes that the woman is planning to sink the ship and does everything he can to stop her, but she is about to press the button that triggers the bomb. When she notices that her friend is acting strangely and aggressively, Epps begins to suspect that something is wrong and soon discovers that Dodge is gone. The truth is that Jack eliminated him and was planning to pretend to be him to convince Epps to fix the ship, but the woman soon discovered his deception. The ghost tells him that sinless souls like Katie can't be marked, so he can't control them. When he realizes that Epps isn't willing to negotiate even to save her own life, Jack has her hit with an iron bar. As soon as the woman falls into the water, he jumps in after her and tries to eliminate her, but Epps hits his leg with the end of a harpoon and manages to shake off the attack. Then she gets up and, instead of shooting the ghost, Epps uses the gun to activate the bomb, which blows up the entire deck. At that moment, the ship begins to sink and all the souls trapped inside manage to free themselves. Seeing Epps in danger, Katie appears and manages to guide her out of the wreckage. When she reaches the ocean, she swims back to the surface with the souls of the crew and sees them all disappearing right in front of her. After a few days adrift in the ocean floating in one of the gold boxes, Epps is found by a ship and brought back to shore, where she receives medical attention. When she arrives at the port, she is taken to an ambulance and sees some men loading the boxes of gold onto a boat. Just then, Jack appears and goes after them to restart his mission of collecting souls to take to hell. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.